Frankenstein mini split. Excuse the noise, it ain't the Lennox 3-phase. It's that bastard recip good motor. Bah! It's that piece of shit right there. Anyway, today I decided to finish tweaking some programming. I did record some clips earlier, but just gonna do it live. It's a little earlier in the day because I started so early. I got home a little earlier, so it's like 5:40 now though. Because I've been home for quite a few hours. So here's my controller. I have 24 volt thermostat input here. Turns the logic on to my controller. I have the suction here, which clamps onto the common suction line. Hey, Za! Looks like you made it first again. There's a suction, and then this one here is the indoor coil, goes in. I haven't insulated this yet, but so thermostat, and then this is a thermistor going under the coil. So you can see as my expansion valve is open, it's feeding 54 degrees, and the suction's already down to 66. That's 12 degrees superheat. So by the time I went upstairs and got this other phone, because my main Samsung overheated about a minute into recording a clip for you guys, so I'm just going to do it live. So that means it's going to stop opening. It opened up, started out about 50-ish or whatever. It opened up my 114 steps on the expansion valve. And now between 10 and 12 superheat, it's going to be fine. It's going to just sit there. My outdoor fan ramped up all the way because, well, 120 degrees. Which I have the thermistor right here for that. Liquid line down here, thermistor, expansion valve, right, stepper motor plugged into my indoor one. I'm not going to bother hooking up the outdoor one till later. The outdoor one and the other's thermistor, which will go on the upper coil. That's going to be evaporator for winter. I don't need any of that till I hook up the gas line to my circulation loop to my water heater, because this is a dual unit. That's the whole point of this Frankenstein. This is a blown up, fairly new mini split that I just used for the cabinet and motor. I put a fixed 115 volt, capacitor start, rotary compressor in here, about 10,000 BTU, using the bottom half of the coil for condenser, top half for the evaporator for heat pump mode, and that's just for winter. When I turn off the expansion valve, that goes to the indoor coil, and it'll modulate the outdoor expansion valve instead. So I put a second expansion valve here. It goes to the top half of the coil. So the top half will be an evaporator for the winter to heat the water without refrigerating my little workspace inside my Frankenstein lab. So my goodness, that outdoor coil is pretty warm, but it's about almost 110 right now. So it's probably pretty normal. So it maxed out the speed of what I limited it to. I could almost turn a little more, but I don't know. My fan's moving pretty good. I do have the top off, so it's bypassing the coil a little bit. Indoor coils, 54 bucks up to 53 or so with a 64. So it's expansion valve positions and holding at 114. So I'm gonna go ahead and put this cover on for a little bit. I got to go to the store and get the Armaflex. I got to finish insulating this and kind of strapping it, and then put my control wiring to it. Put the other panel on. So there's the controller. I think there's some error will come across. Hopefully that inverter board for the outdoor fan doesn't overheat. I don't see why it would, because this is a pretty small motor, and that's a dual motor inverter board, and they make motors this size that have the ECM controls built in, so, and they don't get too much cooling. Let's see. So anyway, pulse width modulation is going in right here, which feeds through to give variable voltage to the inverter for the outdoor fan motor, and it's working. And then the compressor gets power from this relay up there. So I'm gonna show you. I put my other phone into the refrigerator. It's in my Frankenstein laboratory here. I guess probably should put a sign on here that says Frankenstein's laboratory, you know. I let it get pretty warm, so it's like 84. It was 85, 86, 68. Let me turn this fan up just a pinch more. TXV will modulate accordingly then. There we go. Get the phone, which will run the thermostat, because the second I want to turn it off, and we'll let it turn off for a second to watch it hold its memory and everything. Hopefully the phone doesn't overheat. Just even here in the shade, the thing starts like shutting off stuff in the phone I'm using. The live stream will probably overheat eventually too. We're close to about 120. So counts at 119. See it probably had to adjust a little bit when I turned up the fan, but it went right back to 12 degrees. 10 to 12 is where I have it programmed. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this off. Should stop. Suck if it doesn't. I kind of had to make a real quick thing here. There it goes. It stopped. Saved expansion valve position is 119. And I need to fix this connector here if I don't get juiced. Put the phone here. Hopefully it doesn't. Hold on, drop the phone. I need to break off a tab so I can plug it in the rest of the way. Shocked. Oop, there went the phone. Yeah, we still live. All right. And plug this back in. Oop, see a little. Okay. So it says off. And that's just how it sits. So it starts the next time. So let's go right here. Make sure we got a delay before it kicks on again. Cold temperature's dropping just a pinch. So here is the inverter board. Like I said, hopefully some air pulls through the side of this cabinet. Will pull across the heat sink. But I kind of laid this right on there, just barely fits. It beats putting this down there where I can't get to it. So it just fits perfectly underneath the cover, and the cover rests against this plastic. So it's just, I think, gonna work. And the cover's kind of bowed up with some foam on it already. This is the compressor relay. I just buy these boards on Amazon. They're so cheap. It's cheaper than buying relays by themselves almost. It's got optical isolators, logic inputs. You just put 12 volts in the logic input. You can set logical high, low. I have a high. And then what I'm doing, these say they're 10 amps each, which is about where that compressor is, but I just have them paralleled. Hopefully that's tight. It doesn't look like I'm going to fix that. But anyway, that's the deal. The thermostat's probably got the 5-minute. It doesn't say, oh wait, what's it saying up here on top? I'm just getting used to this app. Oh, humidity 45%. Outdoor 73 degrees. No, it's not. I must need to go in there and set my, it's probably basing that off of my, you probably got to go in there and set the website app thing to where you're at, and it probably just uses the news, the internet, just to report the temperature. But outdoor is not 73 degrees. The outdoor is fucking 110 degrees. It just dropped to 111. You see that? So it's hot. So I think this thing just needs a few more minutes before it comes on. Probably got a 5-minute delay. Don't think it really tells me. Doesn't tell me it's waiting, and it might at the thermostat inside. But I just finally got this app working. It took like 24 hours before I was able to get my password set up properly. Coil's down to 96. Just, I don't know how it's down to 96. What's it be? Oh, it is. It must have migrated a little pinch of refrigerant.
White House already dealing from a long list of problems now has
wow.
headache to deal with. First Lady Joe Biden causing some controversy.
YouTube must have been bumped and been waiting for a live stream. Or a bump, something like that. Fox. I wasn't even touching it.
With the understanding.
Shut up, stupid Biden whore. We're waiting for something important. I'm hoping that the sun doesn't overheat this. So anyway, see any more comments or anything. It is hot out here. I threw up this umbrella right here. I don't really want to get in the sun to show you guys it, but I just have it sitting there. Waiting for this even to come back on. Hopefully everything just works the way I have it. I could program a little more counts, pulse width modulation, to turn the fan up just a pinch higher. I might go in there and do that. I just program another chip and maybe just swap them. Come on, Thermostat. It's set for 73. 5 minutes or more is eternity when you're waiting. We're waiting. Oop, it just heard a click. I was going to go check something and it kicked on. So there it goes. It's opening the expansion valve, turning on the fan. Compressor's already running. It's just I couldn't hear the compressor over the Goodman down there. Fan motor's trying to start. I notice it rocks quite a bit before it starts. And I think it might be rocking a little more because this inverter board, well, that's a long time this time. There it goes. Inverter board's for a dual fan. And maybe it's not an exact match, but I have the inverter board. Maybe later, I'll have to see how much they are, but I might try to find a fan motor of this horsepower rating and everything that has the ECM all built in. So you just have like this, the socket you have down there, you know, right on the motor, like the inside motor is. So, man, look at that outdoor coil is 128. It's gonna drop down. This has bypassed some of the coil though, the lid off, but that'll drop down. And we'll start to cruise now. It's already pretty much at max. 28. Indoor coil 68. Suction 89. It's going to start stepping open the EXV. It's all the way up to 120. It hasn't, but it's locked. It's not adjusting yet. It's waiting for the delay I put in there to make the compressor run for a minute or so before it starts modulating the expansion valve. These are just, again, this LCD is this data for me, and maybe later I'll change it up so it has nice, neat, organized values of just basic stuff. But I'm seeing my delay timer, all these different values that are just for me to debug, you know, my thing. So now the delay for expansion valve timer is expired. Now it's going to start modulating based on superheat of the indoor coil versus the suction. So now that we're at 20 something degrees superheat, it's going to keep opening the expansion valve until it gets down within 12 degrees. And if it starts going below 10 degrees superheat, it starts modulating it closed, keep it from overshooting. So it's going. And the outdoor coil's already dropped down to 122. I guess 120. I mean, it sounds so hot. With the, I think you like the fan ain't fast enough. It's moving pretty good. But when it was actually 110 out here, so 10 degrees over ambient. That's pretty efficient, actually. This is one of the extreme days, and it was really humid earlier. So this is the thermistor on the coil inside, hanging on the wall inside, and it's 56. And then you see the suction is 72, dropping down 71. Expansion valve counts all the way up to 134. So it's starting to flood more and more refrigerant automatically. I'm not doing it like I did the other day, yesterday or whatever it was. So, was it yesterday or the day before? Hopefully this phone doesn't overheat. Should probably go get some ice. Pour some water on it. water on my phone screen here for a second. Hopefully it doesn't start pushing buttons. Hopefully I'll keep this phone running. Otherwise it's gonna, shut off on us. So I think I cooled the screen off a little bit, pouring water on it. I'm not getting any more comments. Hopefully I didn't accidentally hit a button and break that. Expansion way open at 139. I mean, when that room was really hot the other day, I had a manual open up to 200 to get the superheat corrected, and then I was able to modulate down it. So right now, 56 indoor coil, 67 suction right there. It's not gonna open anymore. It's superheat. It's happy. Hey Joe, what's up? Joe says, hey man, there are these military surplus units on Facebook I'm going to check out. They are 1.5 ton 208 3-phase. Wow, 208 3-phase for only a 1.5 ton. How can you make them run on single phase? If it's something that's VFD related or something, some stuff doesn't have anything checking if all 3 legs are there. It just simply goes through a 3-phase diode brick and just comes out as DC anyway. And it just basically the unit, if the DC voltage goes low, it might think it lost a phase or something while it's under load. But other than that, a lot of VFDs don't know. Okay, it says I lost connection for a second there. So hopefully you heard everything I said, Joe. But basically I was just saying, you can put single phase to VFDs as long as it doesn't have a way to detect that there's a missing phase and it's only monitoring DC voltage. It won't even know. So that's how that Lennox is running right there. It's a 3-phase 208 230 volt VFD, and I just got single phase going to it. And the Jakawa phase, so they just go base it off or something. Other than that, it doesn't know. So it just depends on what it is, and if it monitors some of this stuff. Some of it has it'll monitor 2 of the 3 leg sensors, and if it's doing it on the input, then you might have an issue. But you might be able to, the 2 legs that are going through the current sensors, it'll be more current because it's not distributing it in the 3 legs. So it just depends. You'll have to just try it. So if it's an Amazon VFD, if that's just a VFD, look up my happy. Once that room starts cooling down, it will start modulating. My room's down to 83 now, it was 85. So we'll just see if it takes anything to update that. What's really bugging me, it says outdoor 73. And that's got to be a web app, and it probably just needs me to put my zip code in or something. Or allow it to look at my location or some bullshit. It's like it's checking out Colorado, or not even Colorado. Let me have the Alaska or something. Where would it be 73 right now? Except for on the other side of the planet, maybe, where the sun is midnight. Let's see here. Doing live, it can always becomes less than 10 degrees for heat. My expansion valve will start calibrating closed. About 122 degree outdoor coil. I think that's just where it's going to run. We're 10 degrees over, or 12 degrees or so over ambient. It's hot right here. It's hot. 110. Fans running at max speed. This was the last starting position of my expansion valve, 119 counts. When it stops, if I stop it by the thermostat the next time, it will shut down normally, save my current count, and then start with that position of the EXV next time. That's how I programmed it, which I think is just pretty much how all the, produced stuff works. That way, whatever the last cycle was where it starts off the next cycle. So far, nothing weird's happened. It hasn't I don't want to jinx it, but it hasn't gone on, off, or anything weird. And actually, it seems like I got pretty decent filters on my temps, because my temps they're only like right when it's starting to change from 1 degree to another, it's jumping a little bit, which is okay, but it's not like jumping a bunch. You see the ID one's real stable, and so it's the suction. Now we're 11 degrees superheat. I think it's what we were a second ago. So it's slowly coming down. Oop, this just went to sleep. 83 degrees. After I satisfied that this is working and get done with the video, I got to put the other panel here in place, go to the Lowe's and get my insulation and finish that, and then I got to put the inside together. here, 110. 55, 66 is almost dropping a degree. So we're still running 11 degrees superheat. I ran this yesterday without having this hooked up and just left it where the expansion valve was when I unplugged it 2 nights ago. And then I ran it yesterday when I came home from work and let it run all the way down. The expansion valve obviously didn't open up more when it was hot in there like it needed to, but it's still cooled actually. Just probably was starving a little bit, and then the room did come down. So it just probably had really high superheat when I first started it up. It's like a fixed orifice unit, probably would anyway. Oh, I'm less than 10 degrees. It's going to start closing. It did already start closing when I was standing over there. 133, 132. And now that suction just popped up a degree or so. It's going to stop modulating. Well, it's about 9 degrees still, so it's going to close. It'll close till it gets over 10 degrees. $130. See the changes again. 129. So it's starting to drop counts on that. It's probably starting to cool off just a little bit in there. I also noticed inside there, 83. Wow, that phone's hot because it doesn't want to have the screen bright. Hopefully that's updating. Might not. You guys can't even see that. That phone's gonna probably stop working. Hopefully the one I'm holding my hand doesn't overheat. Should probably go and let the cold air blow on it for a second. 126. The suction keeps dropping, so it keeps dropping the expansion valve. I slowed down my loop on how often it makes a correction, so it's a little slower now. It'll catch though. Nice cool suction. This is for people that haven't seen it before. This is a board I made just to hold 2 of these already built stepper motor drivers. It's like, you buy these chips, but you can buy these boards like 2 for $8 or whatever, if it's even that much on Amazon. And then you got this little potentiometer you can adjust so the current, get the current. Nope, lost signal there for a second. Stepper motor's not hot, so I got these adjusters, so it's pretty cool. The other day I started out 200 counts and I got it down to like, what was it, like 50 or something, or 40 something counts, when the room got down to like 72 or something, and it started out 100. So I still got 8 degrees superheat, and it seems like the superheat this suction keeps dropping about as fast as this keeps correcting. It's not correcting real fast, but it isn't, the correction's not getting worse. It's like 8 degrees superheat still, 8-9 degrees. So 109, just dropped my count down to 109. So stepper motor is modulating down. This line's sweating, so it's nice and cool. Second board skills. Yeah, I still wasted a couple boards. I've been starting to do some single-sided ones. Except for that one. That one does say Frankenstein HVAC on it. This one here is just a single-sided, and I just did a couple jumpers on top to skip over some traces. I basically laid it out in the software with a bottom and top layer here, but then I just didn't engrave the top layer, and right where the vias would go, I just put jumpers. So it's like a nice clean board, doesn't have the copper on top. So. And then this one, the same thing. I kind of like this board here. And then I'm using 2 of the same boards, man. Basically, it steps up the voltage, to run the high voltage, the 230 volt input inverter board for that fan. And I'll be able to run 230 volt motors with that same board. I'll probably produce that board a couple times, and it's just it might be overkill if you don't put too many capacitors. I didn't need a delay, but I have a current limiting resistor to charge the secondary capacitors, so where right when they get up so much before has enough voltage to pull in that coil, just like a cut in, cut out on a potential relay type of thing. Once the voltage comes up, it pulls in that coil, and then it bypasses the current limiting resistor, so I can keep the capacitors charged and run the motor. Joke. Maybe, just depends. The thing about boards, me making boards, is like I'm like a experimenter type of guy, so it's like trial and error. So sometimes it takes me a handful of boards before I get something kind of worked with a revision I like. I'll forget something, and the other day when I did that live stream or whatever it was, I said, oh man, I'm gonna have to make a new board because I made a couple mistakes in not moving some net port connections or whatever they call it in the software, but it was only one, and all I had to do was cut a trace, solder this wire, and then move it over here to where I was going to be a spare, which was now my input for this one thing, and it's fine. I actually was able to use the board I made that otherwise came out really nice. So 51, 66. Okay, so my superheat's over 12 now, so it's going to be starting to open this again. Yep, 101. So it superheat kind of increased. So we're at 13 degrees superheat right now. This EXV, every time this goes up to 4 or 2, every time this goes to 200, I think. I thought I increased that, maybe not. Spam on my other phone. So 103. We're at we're 11, so we're less than 12. It's going to stop adjusting for a while. It's going to stay at 103. It's not moving now. So it's cool because you can see the coil inside is around 51 degrees. Now that thermistor is not at the very inlet of the coil, but it's a couple rows in, and that's just where they always put the thermistors. And then I have a thermistor down here for my liquid line after my coil. Liquid line. So we're back down to 120 on the outdoor coil. They just get you this ICM 254 board that I like because I could delay loads on and off, but they don't make them anymore. I'll have to look up what an ICM 254 is. I know in the 300 series you're talking motor speed controllers. What is it, a 300 or 330 or something like that? And there's a couple different ones. They're just triac deals. I have a couple Motor Master inside, not the Motor Master 5, but the ones that are just single phase. And one screwed up one way and one screwed up another way, where instead of dropping out completely once the motor got slowing down so much, it would keep lowering the triac on the motor until the motor would stall. I did a video on it, and then it would just keep the motor going. It didn't have enough on time on the triac to run the motor, but it was still putting current, and the motor got really hot. And this was like new unit that these guys put this thing on there, and it was overheating their motors. They thought they had bad motors, probably because they overheated, and then they changed them out. Get there, they were. So now we're at EXP's all the way is down to 91. We're like 11, so it's still sitting there. Not going to make any adjustments until it starts changing again. Let's go to the inside for a second before this phone overheats. I'll go ahead and go in there and let cold air blow on it. So you guys will see that I still have to piece together the inside, but I probably could get that done today. There's the Frederick carrier thing. That thing was working pretty religiously, and then recently it quit. So I don't know if something unplugged. I don't think the fan's getting the signal. Something might have happened. I remember I fucked up the transformer, stuck another one there, so who knows. So we're running off of inverter power, 55.5 volts, so we only went down a volt. It is tapping some solar. It is what time is it? 6:10. So this phone in here, this one here, I want to let the cool air blow on for a second. 66 degrees. Well, that doesn't make any sense. Feels pretty good, actually. Let's move that over. Oh, the line thing was reading. Hot bits. 83, so that's actually 20 degrees split. 21 right there. I don't know, right here was a dead spot. Yeah, it's a little warmer on this side. It's probably not perfectly even in this coil. But I know once it gets down to temperature, I had this thermistor, this thermometer here, and it was doing like 40 something. Anyway, let's just try and blow some cooler on there. I'm trying to look at this again. So the batteries. Oh, we did that. So 55. So it's a draw enough both, so we can see how much. So the PV is doing a third of the kilowatt, so 330 watts is all I'm getting. It's what was I starting to say? It's after 6, so the sun angle is not enough. Amps. Batteries, it's pulling out 11 amps, so the batteries are 640 watts. So it's combined those two together. And if you go and look at the 10 amps on the 120 side, or 1.2 kilowatts, some of that's running the equipment in here. I keep doing it, but if you turn off the light, it always drops down to 100 watts. See? LED light in here draws a little bit. So it's dividing up even with some cloud cover most of the morning, when I came home at 2 o'clock, 2:30, oh, I guess it was, because I started early, I came home early. It finished work here. I looked at this and it was the AC was running to maintain 75 in here, and the battery was fully charged. Now the solar's putting out, almost 400 watts. So yeah, it just depends on how the sun and clouds are out there. But it is drawing most of our batteries right now, and we're using 1.2 kilowatts in this room. So that's down to 83. So I let it get good and warm while I was working on that. Oh, that's weird that that thing went up there. Why is this thermometer really high? I move it over there. Weird. This thing might be screwed up a little bit. No, I'm live. I'm streaming, so go.
Okay, we're leaving.
For what?
Went out to my dad's.
Why?
Go hang out with my sister.
Why? Sister's recording. Your sister's poopy. So disturbed. So anyway, got to check out the messages while this is cool off. Low voltage 24. Oh, it's just 24 volt delay stuff. There might be something else out there actually that's the same thing. Or if you look on eBay, a lot of people have surplus amounts of that old HVAC stuff. But could be possible to make some stuff. It's just hard to compete and make it cheap when you're spending a lot of time to make it something that was normally $30. Anyway, slowly cooling down in here. 82 now. 82. Actually, that's more than 20 degrees, but I don't know why I thought that was warm. It's weird, I move it, like, this thing's like screwy. This thing fell earlier, that's why the metal thing's off of it. So anyway, here's the same board as outside. 120 volts goes through a diode, charges a capacitor on one half of the wave of the rectifier. And then on the other half, it puts this in series with the other half of the wave of the incoming sine wave. So you get you get the 170 volts. That's what it is, peak to peak on 120 volts is RMS. So 170 is what you actually have if you measure on oscilloscopes. You have 170 in the capacitor, then the next half of the sine wave is 170 going in series with that 170 to put 340-ish into the capacitor. And then it sags a little bit depending on the load. So I read 330 something if the motor isn't running, and then it just dips down a little bit when it's running. But it runs a motor that would take 220 volt input, which just rectifies inside it. I just made this voltage doubler circuit. And this is a little touchy, but the thing I have to do is I need to make another small little IC board with just to make I'm going to make a 2-speed thing. I could just 2-speed it by switching resistors and just to divide the inputs, but it'd be easier if I just make a little microprocessor board with the pulse width modulation output, since I have that just configured for that to plug into their pulse width modulation, and I could just it switches an optical isolator just to make the average voltage it's generating go back into it to tell it what speed to run. So I could program in maybe 2 speeds and have 2 inputs, green for fan only, and then for cooling kick it up like the higher and have it drop down low when it's on fan. If I wanted fan continuous, just depends. I was just gonna do it since I have to build the board. So anyway, yeah, it's just looking at the back of the comments. Yeah, they make that stuff cheap, just like these little boards I was talking about. These little boards from Amazon. 2 for like $8. I can't, and they're buying those chips in bulk to make these cheap. But if I buy those chips by themselves, I'm probably gonna pay a couple bucks each. When I buy one, 2 at a time, 3 at a time, whatever. So for a couple bucks more, I'm getting them already laid out on a board that's laid at the normal, pin spacing that drops in the breadboards. So, and earlier I didn't put it up there, but didn't go live. But I got a couple of these in here. Where did I throw the other one? I gotta fix the other one. My brother-in-law gave me 2 of these. He said I can have one if I fix up one for him like I did before on another one. So these things are notorious. It's a Comfort Link scrolling marquee, And these pads, I think they just get the weather or something. Something happens because remote controls are made with the same exact technology, and that remote control lasts 20 years and still work. So maybe get a little touchy, but it'll still work. These 5 years into them, they're like, you can't even get these freaking pads to work. And it's just like a carbon conductive pad, and one down here that's coated over the copper. So you can sometimes take these apart, rub them down and get it to kind of work. But eventually you're just pushing and pushing. You can't get it to work. Sometimes you can't even clear a freaking alarm. To buy the service tool, the navigator that Carrier has to plug in on the LAN port, it's like over $1,000 now. These are about $600-700, I think, last time I checked. It's like, holy hell. So I fixed these before by cutting off the pad, and I have to sand this down, but then I put buttons in them. So listen to this. I did this one earlier. I got to go give it to the brother-in-law. I got to take it and test it, plug it into a main baseboard or something. But I'm pretty sure it's going to work because it's reading with the meter on the board. It seemed to. Just got to make sure it didn't screw up. But so inside, basically, I've taken it all apart. Let me set the phone down for a second. So I ground these down a little bit, or cut them down. So I took the pads off. I had to for the clearance. Put tactile buttons on there. But I had to like prep the board and then put the solder where it goes and the switches where they go. But like fucking butter, man. I got this guy to approve me to fix it because he had 6 units on one roof, package units with these scrolling marquees, and they were all bad. One was kind of working, but it was like taking the pads out and shoving a screwdriver in there. And that's how desperate you get when it's hot, and you got there in the afternoon and like this time of year, and you can't even clear the freaking alarm. So people usually take cut it out and just stick something in there just to get it to move down and get to the alarm menu or see what the alarm is, then clear the alarm. So yeah, so better than original, but Carrier did. I think I had something to do with it from what I was told. I did this before and made a video before a couple years ago, and somebody told somebody, and I've seen pictures sent back to me of the new boards, and it basically looks kind of like what I just showed you, the inside of my modified one there. So we're down to 82. I've gotten this room, even today I had this room so cold I had to turn it off. It freezes me out. Yeah, I do like that repair on the scrolling marquees because it's the fucking phone in there. If I need to turn this off. Yeah, it's like it was better than original. And I'm thinking of having people send me one. Like I'll say, give me your old one and $150, and I'll like give them the fixed one like it right away that I had made, and then I'm gonna take the other one and fix that one for the next person, and I don't know who wouldn't that has those at their site or whatever. I don't know who wouldn't give me $150 in their old one for one that I put buttons in. Way cheaper than a new one. So this thing seems to be working okay. Outdoor coil is actually down to 118 now. The sun is at an acute angle, so that's why the solar doesn't have enough power now. So it's tapping off of my batteries. 50 degrees on the coil in there and 66. Also, that it should start to open the expansion valve. Now, every time I mess with that fan in there, it's like that little potentiometer is like crappy that I put on there. It's like used from like an amplifier or something I took it out of. Had some spare parts. And I noticed that fan motor jumps. And if you barely touch that potentiometer, it's really touchy. So when that motor jumps speed, it changes the superheat like instantly. So right now we're at 16 degrees superheat. So I was all the way down, below 90, I think. So now it's throttling back open. 93, 94. That's my counts on my expansion valve. But 0 to 255. 255 is all the way open. So we're still like less than half, or like at probably 40% open or something. 50 and 60. Okay, now it's within. See, it's shot down to 10 degrees superheat. That's going to stop opening. So now it's just going to park itself at 94 and not change after my couple seconds. It's like a 5-second counter or whatever, maybe 10 seconds, and elapses every time it zeroes, it looks and sees if it needs to adjust. So it's just what slows down the subroutine. And again, when I could take all those numbers out and make a clean just display of the basic readings, and it won't look like that. This is just debugging for me. Puppy's getting big. Oh yeah. That dog has a freaking bark, dude. It's pretty scary. Pretty scary. But he's a half boxer, half lab, and he does get up on his hind legs and box you. Pretty crazy. But way better, way more mannered than the last big dog we had. It's too scary for the kids. Dobby, come here. Come here. What are you doing? Come on. Come on. It's a mess back here. There's that other unit took the compressor. Come here. Come on. He doesn't know what to think of me holding the phone and stuff. Come here. Get you in the shade. Come here. There you go. Sit. Come here. Sit down. Don't mind the Goodman piece of shit. Sit. Sit. There you go. Give me a paw. Give me your other paw. Let's get up. Ooh. I think he's like 7 months old or something now. I don't know. The wife knows. They know that crap. I don't know that crap. About 9 degrees superheat, so it's going to start throttling that down. It is throttling it down. So it tries to keep it between 10 and 12 degrees superheat. You can see it's nice and sweaty. So I got a 60 degree suction, and actually the indoor coil is dropping in the 40s now. Look at that, 48. All I know is earlier today, when it gets down in the 70s in there, the coil actually starts blowing out 40 something. So now we're going to turn this off and button this up. I need to get going on it. I'm never going to finish it. I got to do something on the inside, and then I don't want to go too long on the video, but here's my head pressure fault. Plug it so you see what it does. So I did that. I tested that earlier in the video or whatever. Actually, it was a video clip I don't think I uploaded, but it didn't stop. It was because I forgot I wasn't using a digital output anymore for the relay. I was using pulse width modulation, and it was a little trick that I didn't have enough outputs, or it wasn't working right. So I already have, there's one pulse width modulation dedicated output on this you could use. That, and then once you send us a command to it, you said go to this frequency and this pulse width, right, duty cycle. And I just keep the frequency the same and change the duty cycle to control the fan speed, right? And you could go run other subroutines, and that hardware, it locks in on that and it stays there until you give it another command. It doesn't have to use a subroutine to generate the pulse, is what I'm saying. It actually has hardware in there for that. It's just one pin on this chip. So I realized how I can run the compressor relay and the fan speed on one output, and what it is at very low pulse width, low duty cycle, the voltage isn't enough to get in the range of, like, think of a 2 to 10 volt thing. The 0 to 2 volts doesn't do anything, right? So I have to go to a certain voltage before the fan even starts. But a very low pulse width, making pulses, and I filter it through diode capacitor here, and this has got a logical input through an optical isolator. Basically, I'm able to just use 10% duty cycle is enough to come out and run the compressor relay. So as soon as I go 10% duty cycle, this relay clicks on, and then from there, as the thermistor heats up in summer mode and cooling, it'll start ramping up the pulse width to step the fan up to modulate the coil. And if I start dropping below 100 or something on that liquid line, it starts slowing down the coil. So basically, I have low ambient built into this. And then so it has that range, and then the compressor doesn't stop till you turn off pretty much the duty cycle to 0. So I accidentally had that large old digital output still in there, not doing nothing in my loop for this, which stays there until you complete this. And it's closing the valves. It always homes the valves every time I boot up or do that. So it's going to close. I have it closed in 255 steps. I do that every time the power is rebooted, and I just let that go to the boot up menu. So it overdrives the valve because it's already closed, but it keeps this doing it, so it zeroes. It basically homes your stepper motor, and then it's going to open 119. See, it's where it was earlier. It's going to open to there and start the compressor again. Hopefully the compressor isn't. Okay, it started. I was hoping that wasn't too quick. Nope, there goes my fan motor. Getting ready to start. Coil's at 104. See, the whole switch starts at like 50 or 60. Oh, it jumps to 60, but then it jumped down a couple steps because the coil was kind of cooled off. And then it's going to start ramping up. See, it's not even running yet because it's actually right below that threshold. Like 60 is about where the beginning of the threshold right before the fan comes on. But it's going to see it's going up to 120 degree coil, and it keeps my delay timer elapses, there goes a fan, it's started. Then it makes a change based on thermistors. So it takes like every almost 10 seconds for it makes a change on thermistors. So there it goes, the fan's going 125. So the coil's going to overshoot a little bit because the fan's taking its own sweet time to get going, and the pulse width is slowly creeping up on that. I do have it programmed that once that's warmer, it kind of skips and jumps. See, it's jumping because that coil got kind of warm, and then it's going to start catching up. The fan motor at 170 counts is pretty much at the fastest I want it to run. You run the fan. The fan will go faster, but I don't think it cools off the coil much anymore at all. It's like the max it's going to cool it off, and it just pulls more amps. And this motor will pull like tenths of an amp in its efficient zone, but then if you really crank it up, it could go up to like well over an amp. So maybe even a couple amps on the 120 volt side. But that takes away efficiency there. So yeah, the coils start dropping a little bit now, and it'll just kind of find its sweet spot. So cool. But that's how it works. And the EXV is adjusted here. So if I were to turn it off by the thermostat and go through the proper shutdown menu, which I don't think it does with the, this is its last starting expansion valve value. It just means something to me right there. And it's right here, right? When I pulled the high pressure switch, it doesn't update that. It just goes immediately to a high pressure fault and then goes back to starting up. But if I shut it down, a normal sequence and the thermostat's done, it writes this value into the EEPROM and into a value, and it copies it. And then the next time it starts, it goes with that same value. Starts back up where it left off, 10 minutes ago, whatever, when the thermostat restarts. All right, cool. So I'm gonna go turn off the thermostat, unplug this, and get this thing put together all the way. So anyway, I'm gonna end the video. It probably went a little long, but this part's pretty much working. I think I could just close it up, and it's good to go until winter, until I tie in the hot gas to the water heater, which is what I have to modify. Both controllers got to be able to turn on the system, thermostat or water heater. I don't think that's going to be difficult. And I'll be golden. So anyway, with that, don't forget to like, subscribe, share the videos, do all that stuff. We will catch you guys later.